Shocking truth revealed. Homeless hero's incredible rescue at Billionaire's funeral transforms life in San Francisco. The sun beat down on the perfectly coiffed crowd, lined in designer suits, as the funeral of a billionaire unfolded in a spectacle of wealth and prestige. Among them, Daniel sat on a nearby step, guitar in hand, music spilling from his fingers in melodic defiance against the world that had turned its back on him. He was a ghost of himself, once a medical student, now a shadow blending with the concrete. But today, that world spun into chaos. A scream, sharp and panicked, cut through the atmosphere, shattering the reverent silence of mourning. Instinct kicked in a whisper of his past loyalty to the Hippocratic Oath. The crowd parted, revealing a woman sprawled, gasping for breath. His heart raced, a rhythmic drumbeat drowning out the strumming of his guitar. Urges battled within him. Help her, or remain unseen, a stray note in the fading symphony of life. He didn't hesitate. Years of training surged back. Panic surged through him, a fevered energy pushing him forward. His dirty jeans and worn shirt no longer mattered. He was just a man with skills honed to save lives. The rush of adrenaline blurred the edges of his vulnerability. Daniel knelt, his hands steadying her, but doubts flickered in his mind. Would they see him as their homeless hero, or merely the ragged figure lingering at the periphery of their world? The internal strife clawed at him as he counted her breaths, reduced to fragmented thoughts. If only ID made different choices. If only I could reclaim those hopes. Before he could second-guess himself, she stabilized under his touch. Murmurs transformed into applause, faces shifting from shock to gratitude. Yet he remained adrift, caught in a cyclone of emotions. Their hands reached out, a sea of suits and pearls, but each congratulatory cheer felt tainted. As cameras buzzed, capturing his moment of triumph, he shrank inward, resisting the desire for recognition. His fingers, stained from dirt and sorrow, trembled with the weight of judgment. Did they even care? Was he merely a headline, a fleeting story that would soon fade? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the day unspooled into evening, conflicting emotions swirled. Was he about to be thrust into the light, or would this spotlight expose the fractures beneath? Rumors flitted through the crowd, each echoing the homeless hero label, yet the term repulsed him like bitter ash on his tongue. And just as doubt steeped heavily within him, a click of an old newspaper spun his world on its axis. The billionaire's family, connected to his bloodline. His grandmother had worked for them years ago, yet he remained a nameless inhabitant of the streets, uplifted by another's legacy. Questions clawed at him. Could he revisit a past obscured by failure? Would seeking connection igniting a fire of familial responsibility, or would it unravel him? Daniel stood on the brink, a timeline interwoven with aspirations and despair. The air thick with anticipation felt like a tightrope drawn between who he had been and who he could yet become. The looming date with the family felt like a freight train barreling towards him, fueled by hopes both fragile and relentless. Whispers intensified, the weight of expectation crashing down. He braced, unwilling to step backward. In the fortress of silence that surrounded him, the real battle commenced. Could he reclaim not just a name, but the scattered pieces of his shattered dreams? Before him lay a storm of uncertainty, dark clouds, gathering with each passing moment. Would he be able to forge an identity, or would the past continue to shadow him, locking him in a ceaseless fight against the relentless tide of worth and belonging? The anticipation weighed heavily as Daniel stood outside the gilded gates of the billionaire's estate. The grandeur felt like a mockery of his own life, where every corner turned had ushered in further decay and neglect. Yet, The moment served as an interplay of his past anxieties with a fractured yearning for redemption. He tightened the grip on his guitar, the instrument suddenly a familiar anchor in an overwhelming sea of uncertainty. Memories surged, days spent in sterile hospitals, restoring health to the broken, the empowered competence that coursed through him. But all of that was lost to the relentless slide into hopelessness. Now, as he prepared to face the very family that had once removed his future from his grasp, the inheritance of shame and rejection eclipsed any nobility he once found in caring for others. As he stepped through the doorway, polished marble gleamed under opulent chandeliers, the picturesque facade hosting a well of sorrow. Mellow strings graced the silence, blending into a symphony of polite despair. But beneath the surface, raw emotions bubbled. Was he truly ready to confront the life he had been denied, or the remnants of a dream that had long since eroded to dust? A voice called out Clarissa, the deceased daughter, an aura of strength and fragility embodying the pain of loss. Recognition flickered in her eyes, tracing the lines of his face, perhaps unearthed deep memories of family links severed by fate. She approached, poised yet visibly shaken. "You're the one from the funeral?" The tremor in her voice hinted at the shared burden of heritage lost. Daniel nodded, the words catching in his throat. A moment wavered, suspended in time, as apology and resentment collided. The potential for connection glimmered frailly, but fear surged through him. How could he step into this world, plagued by the stigma of his homelessness? He opened his mouth, ready to speak, yet the specter of vulnerability loomed large. Would she see only the rags he wore, or the heart that knew the true weight of suffering? "I wanted to thank you," she continued, breaking the silence, sincerity reflected through her glassy eyes. "You saved my mother's life. It's incredible," and her voice faltered, struggling against the wall of family expectations. A glimpse of understanding sparked deep within him. Sheltered under layers of wealth and loss, she too bore shadows of a double life. In that moment, clarity ignited something within Daniel. He was not merely her mother's savior. He embodied resilience, a force that thrived beyond the labels pinned to him. His next words hung heavy in the air, charged with potential a reckoning that could propel him into a new realm or pull him into suffocating constriction. "I want to understand about my family." The revelation tumbled into the space between them, where breath stagnated and uncertainty rolled in. Clarissa's expression shifted, curiosity mingling with wariness. "You deserve to know the truth." The challenge had shifted. The question echoed within him: could knowledge soothe the trauma, or would it reopen wounds long stitched shut? As the conversation unfolded, the void of the past began to fill, each revelation unearthing future possibilities. The evening pressed onward, revealing more layers of complexity and connection than Daniel had foreseen. Bonds reconciled through shared pain, an echo of fractured paths converging on common ground. In daring to unlock the door to his family, this estranged force of legacy, Daniel realized that this was a shift, not just from homelessness, but into a new life rooted in profound ancestral ties. And yet, as the strands of their history intertwined, a shadow loomed, a whisper of secrets buried deeper than he imagined. What pivotal truths lay cloaked behind the facade of wealth and power? What darkness dared to surface from the past? The air crackled with tension, anticipation coiling like a spring, ready to unleash a force he never anticipated. Daniel took a step forward into the unknown, where every heartbeat echoed with the tumult of what could come. Next, would it rebuild or rupture once more? The weight of revelation hung in the air as Daniel and Clarissa stood on the precipice of their shared past, the delicate balance of curiosity and apprehension deepening with each word exchanged. The throbbing pulse of connection both terrified and buzzed with potential. They were two souls woven into a tapestry of familial discord and loss. "I never thought you'd want to know," Clarissa confessed, her gaze flickering toward the floor. "Our family has always kept secrets. It's complicated. Her voice trailed off, revealing the heaviness of her burden and, somehow, echoing his own. With the strings of his guitar still reverberating in his hands, Daniel felt the urge to compose his own narrative, a melody that transcended their griefs. Yet, as vulnerability loomed, so did the shadow of doubt. Was this journey about uncovering truths, or was it merely a passageway deeper into his own self-constructed prison? Complicated can bring clarity, he offered cautiously, his words excavating the labyrinth of their history. What happened to my parents? Why did they leave me? Each question felt like a stone dropped into an abyss, the ripples of its impact echoing in an unsettling silence. Clarissa inhaled sharply, wrestling with the ghosts of her own family's decisions. They didn't choose to abandon you, Daniel. It was a series of events spiraling beyond anyone's control. Her vulnerability sparked a silhouette of empathy in him. The chaos of life didn't discriminate between privilege and poverty. Loss was a universal language, spoken through tears and heartache. As she spoke, fragments of her story surfaced, cryptic mentions of mental illness and financial mismanagement, the nuances swirling around her parents' lives like dense fog. With each revelation, nostalgic memories clashed with harsh realities, creating a whirlwind of emotions within Daniel. How had those years gone, untouched and buried, waiting for him to reclaim his identity? They were lives intertwined, drawn together by circumstances neither deserved nor could comprehend. What do I have to do with any of this? The question tumbled from his lips, mingling confusion with desperation. This was not just a story of relative privilege. It was an inquiry into his worth, existential in nature. You are more than just a product of pain, Clarissa replied, a flicker of intensity igniting in her expression. You're a part of our legacy, and we need to find a way to reconnect and understand. Beneath her words lay an implicit challenge, an invitation to reclaim a sense of belonging that he had relinquished over time. Daniel felt the embers of defiance stirring within him. How could he honor the shadows of his past while glaring at the remnants of a self he had tried to obliterate? But in this moment, he realized it wasn't solely about family. It was about crafting a new identity predicated on resilience and reclamation. Seeing the determination reflected in his eyes, Clarissa took a step closer. There's more to uncover, Daniel. Our family has endured much, and there are aspects that could change everything for you, for both of us. But it involves facing truths that may hurt. The tremor in her voice suggested an urgency that could not be ignored. With the conversation escalating, Daniel felt a tempest brewing, the clash of darkness and light within. What truths could recalibrate not only his relationship with his family, but his understanding of himself? The complexity of their interconnected lives spun wildly in his mind, each fragment vying for acknowledgement. The unspoken questions and the thrill of discovery electrified the air between them. A decision loomed. Was he ready to delve into the depths of this familial legacy, revealing scars that might ignite the healing he so desperately sought? Or would the secrets choke off the budding connection, dismantling the fragile bridge they had begun to construct? As the depth of their familial ties unfurled before him, one thought echoed. The journey had only just begun, and each revelation pulled him deeper into the labyrinth of his past. Would he step through and confront the demons lying in wait, or default to the comfortable yet stifling shadows of his current life? The choice lay heavy on his heart, dangling precariously as he met Clarissa's steady gaze, the resolve burgeoning between them. Yet quietly, amid the rising tension, a distant whisper warned of darker truths, yet to unfold a tangled history with the potential to disrupt everything once revealed. Time hung suspended, the air crackling ominously, and a singular thought resonated. Was he prepared to face the irrevocable changes that loomed just beyond the horizon? The silence between them stretched, charged with unarticulated fears and hopes. Daniel regarded Clarissa, searching for resolve in her eyes, a reflection of the unsteady ground they were standing on. She had revealed the truth that many families bury, a truth he had been desperate to uncover. Yet each revelation led him further down a path lined with uncertainty and potential heartbreak. "What do you mean there are painful truths?" he asked, urgency lacing his words. The very notion of facing more reminders of loss made his stomach churn, but the desire to understand his legacy compelled him to press on. "Your parents? They weren't just who you think they were," Clarissa said cautiously. "They struggled with their demons' addictions and the weight of expectation. It affected everything, even the choices they made for you. They loved you deeply, but their decisions created a ripple effect that changed everything." Daniel felt the ground beneath him tremble. This was more than he anticipated. The image he had of his parents, cherished yet veiled in fog, began to crack under the weight of her words. Their love had always felt like a lifeline, but what if it had been an anchor dragging him deeper into a pool of despair? "Are you telling me they were flawed? That their love was not enough?" The vulnerability in his voice made him wince. Each syllable he spoke seemed to peel back layers of an identity he had clung to, a boy of tragedy turned into a man of resilience. His personal journey had often been marked by the desire to be better, to escape the shadows that threatened to engulf him. Clarissa nodded, her expression somber. "Yes, but it's so much more than that. I believe your parents wanted to protect you. Their lives were tangled in crises that were wholly unsolvable, a legacy that doesn't excuse them but might help you understand." A barrage of questions whipped through Daniel's mind. Protective wasn't that what they were supposed to do for him, but protection laced with silence? How had he never grasped the complexity of their struggles before? Heartache ignited a sense of anger within him as he confronted the truth. "Why didn't anyone tell me? Why this convoluted secrecy?" he demanded, his voice rising slightly in intensity. The bitterness was undeniable. Was his suffering merely an afterthought, buried beneath layers of shame and denial? Clarissa hesitated, reflecting on the ripples of pain in every aspect of their lives. "Because we didn't know how to bridge the gaps. Your family was steeped in shame, Daniel. Our own history held us captive, afraid of the repercussions of truth." But now her voice broke slightly as she continued. "Now we have an opportunity to break the cycle." His heart raced. Clarissa was offering not just insight, but a chance for redemption for both of them. The prospect of forging a connection trembled at the fringes of his consciousness, begging to be embraced. "What do you propose?" His voice fell softer, a hint of curiosity replacing the earlier anger. The weight of expectation shifted toward possibility as he leaned into the prospect of addressing their tangled legacy. "There's an old family diary. It contains depths of our unexplored past stories and experiences that could give you a clearer understanding of who you are, where you came from." Clarissa's enthusiasm illuminated her face. She was inviting him into a realm of shared exploration. A diary? The word hung in the air, resonating with a sense of promise and danger. The archives of familial history had the power to unravel him further or fortify him beyond his wildest dreams. "Yes, I believe it holds answers, things that might challenge you, but they could transform your understanding. Only if you decide to look." Daniel felt a surge of determination rising within him, an innate desire to confront not only the shadows of his past, but also the shadow of doubt still looming over his identity. The prospect of navigating this dark, murky water felt daunting, yet exhilarating. "Let us find it. Let us face this together." The words, fueled by a newfound conviction, felt like a promise he was ready to honor. Yet, as they prepared for this daunting expedition into their shared history, a gnawing apprehension lurked at the corners of Daniel's thoughts. Would this journey strengthen the fragile connection he was building with Clarissa, or would it result in revelations that might rupture their tentative bond? A sudden chill swept through the room, and the atmosphere shifted, almost conspiratorial, as if the past had begun to awaken. Daniel sensed that this just might be the moment that would redefine everything: his identity, his worth, and the very fabric of his familial ties. The stories were waiting, and the truth was closer than it had ever been. But would it be the revelation he yearned for, or a final shackle binding him to a past he was desperate to escape? In that charged stillness, he knew one thing for certain. The coming days would not merely be a discovery of the past, but a reckoning with everything their family had concealed. Daniel stood at the precipice of a decision that could potentially change the trajectory of his life. The weight of the diary loomed over him, a tangible emblem of his past and the intricate web of family secrets he was now determined to untangle. As he and Clarissa made their plans, a rush of conflicting emotions surged within him. Hope clashed with fear, excitement battled anxiety. "Where do we even start?" he asked, pushing his hair back as the logistics of the search began to swirl in his mind. Each thought was charged with implications that could reshape the core of who he believed he was. "We need to revisit the house," Clarissa replied, her brow furrowing in thought. "It's bound to be there. My grandmother kept everything, and she was meticulous about recording family history." The suggestion resonated like a clarion call within him. The very thought of stepping back into the shadowy remnants of his childhood home grew vivid in his imagination. Each corner of the house was imbued with memories, some sweet, some bitter. Yet the idea of facing that past to unearth a lost piece of himself invigorated him. Underneath the excitement, however, lay a deeper current of dread. The walls of that house bore witness to ghosts he had grown to evade: the grief, the secrets, the unresolved pain. Facing it now meant confronting not just his parents' struggles, but the consequences those struggles had etched into his own being. "Do you think we'll find answers?" he murmured, almost to himself. Clarissa stepped a little closer, her unwavering gaze pressing him to confront the larger question. "What are you looking for, Daniel? Clarity? Truth? Or something deeper than that?" Her insight struck him, revealing the multifaceted nature of his quest. It was not only about the diary. It was a chance to understand his narrative fully, to intertwine his past with the present. He wanted answers that might quiet the tempest inside him, underpinning a restless journey towards self-discovery. "I want to know if I can forgive them," he confessed, the words tumbling forth with unexpected candor. His breath quickened. This was the raw confession he had buried deep, overshadowed by anger and frustration. "Forgive them for their failings, for their silence. I need to know if I can do that." Clarissa nodded slowly, her empathy palpable. Forgiveness is a process. It doesn't mean absolution. It means accepting their humanity. Their struggles don't diminish your pain, but allow you to chart your path forward. Her perspective was both chilling and liberating. It ignited a flicker of resolve within him, a commitment to look beyond the dire portraits of his past, not in denial of their disturbing imperfections, but as a testament to the complexity of love that shaped his very existence. "Okay, let us go to the house," Daniel decided, stepping into a realm of courageous vulnerability. The pursuit of the diary morphed into a mission of self-reclamation, like a hunter tracking a lost fragment of his own soul. The drive was uneasy, punctuated by silence that reverberated with the unvoiced fears of what they might uncover. Each passing tree, each stretch of road felt charged with possibility. What discoveries lay before him? Would he be ready for what the diary unveiled? As they neared the old house, Daniel's heart pounded vigorously, resonating with the hope and dread swirling within. Memories clashed at the gates of his mind, snippets of laughter entwined with echoes of despair. Would he emerge as a more whole man, or be left with an even heavier burden? Once they arrived, Clarissa parked the car, and a palpable anticipation filled the air. They stared at the house, as if bracing themselves for an impending storm. The peeling paint and overgrown weeds whispered tales of neglect, eerily mirroring the stories he was ready to unearth. "I think it's time," Daniel said, drawing a quick breath, the time for fearful hesitation having passed. His determination solidified as he swung the door open and stepped out into the cool air, clarity dawning amidst the chaos. Together, they approached the house, the threshold of mystery cloaked with the weight of their shared intent. As he crossed the threshold, Uncertainty coiled tight in his gut. Uncharted revelations awaited them both. He was about to step into the heart of his family's secrets. But deep down, Daniel questioned, would this journey be a pathway to liberation, or would it plunge him deeper into a legacy of pain? The door creaked open, and as the scent of dust and stale memories rushed toward him, Daniel steeled himself for what lay ahead. What hidden truths awaited him inside? And would they reveal the clarity he desperately sought, or would they challenge everything he thought he knew about himself and his family? The air inside the house was thick with neglect. Years of dust had layered every surface, each particle swirling in the beams of sunlight that fought to penetrate the grimy windows. Daniel stood still for a moment, overwhelmed by the memories that flooded back, a haunting soundtrack of laughter, tears, and whispered secrets echoing through the walls he had tried so hard to forget. "Let us check the old study first," Clarissa suggested, her voice barely above a whisper, breaking the silence that threatened to engulf him. Her presence felt grounding, a reminder that he was not alone in this descent into the depths of his past. As they made their way through the darkened rooms, each step reverberated with the weight of anticipation. What were they searching for? The diary? Perhaps. But more than that, he sought a reconciliation with the fragments of his identity tangled within these walls. Would these artifacts of history articulate the narrative he so desperately needed to hear? Reaching the study, Daniel hesitated at the doorframe, memories flooding his mind, a younger version of himself, poring over textbooks, dreaming of futures that felt distant and absurd in the face of familial wreckage. Would he find that child within these ruins, or would he discover only shadows of regret? The room was exactly how he remembered it, albeit covered in a layer of sorrowful dust. It was a clutch of books, a desk cluttered in forgotten papers, and on a shelf high above, a forgotten globe. He moved cautiously past the threshold, a reluctant archaeologist digging through the layers of his personal history. "Look," Clarissa called, pointing toward a sleek file box partially hidden under a stack of old magazines. It seemed oddly untouched, as if waiting for someone to uncover its secrets. With tentative hands, Daniel lifted the box and opened it. Inside, yellowed papers unfurled like the brown leaves of autumn, each document a testament to his family's story, a lineage filled with both achievements and failures. The more he examined, the more he could feel the conflicting emotions sparking within him. Anger, love, grief, hope. Were these? Clarissa leaned over his shoulder, her breath tickling his neck, stirring the weight of the moment. "I think they're letters correspondence between my parents," he murmured, his heart racing as he skimmed the first sheet. The words danced before his eyes, longing and pain etched in every sentence. It quickly became evident that the love they shared was layered with deep cracks, each letter a reflection of a struggle he had barely begun to understand. Daniel's hands trembled as he unfolded one particular letter, written in his mother's looping script. It was addressed to him, a message of love caught within the web of her turmoil, her words spilling regret and fear. "I tried to protect you from our mistakes," she had written. The weight of her sorrow hung over him like a storm cloud, threatening to break. "Daniel," Clarissa's voice trembled, urgency piquing her tone. "This is important. You can't just read it and put it aside. You need to confront this." Her words struck a chord, hammering at the walls he had built. Could he actually confront this relentless cycle? Digging deeper, not just for the sake of understanding, but to transform his pain? It forced him to evaluate the path he had forged, one where avoidance ruled his interactions with the past. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he confessed, feeling both exposed and emboldened by the weight of Clarissa's gaze. "Read on," she urged. "You're uncovering parts of yourself that could change everything." As he read further, each sentence peeled back layers he didn't know he had, hidden skills, resilience, and intelligence that could guide him forward. Beneath the tumult lay a path of empowerment that demanded to be recognized. "Do you feel that?" she said softly. "Every time you engage with this, you take your power back." He looked at her, truly seeing her, and felt a rush of gratitude. It was as if she brought forth light in a room shadowed by relics of regret. "I wish my parents had fought harder," he whispered, "but I have the chance to fight now." Her nod was resolute, an anchor of encouragement. They were in this together, forging a new narrative from the wreckage of the OLD. He closed the letters. A sense of clarity washed over him. This was his moment to excavate not just painful reminders, but the strength buried within them. But then came the question that loomed: the legacy of pain from his family was inseparable from his own. How could he shift the narrative while honoring their truths, while carving out his own story? The realization hit him like an electric jolt. The quest for the diary was no longer a mere search for an object. It had turned into an expedition for his own independence and understanding. But as he sifted through the remnants, a chilling thought seized him. Were some truths locked away for a reason? In the depths of the drawers and the corners of the room. What else might he unearth? The anguished hush that filled the study thickened as a new weight settled. Would the answers lurking in these letters unleash a flood of understanding? Or would the secrets they revealed deepen the chasm between who he was and who he wanted to become? Steeped in uncertainty, but resolute to press on, Daniel understood the path ahead was fraught with difficult choices. The words of his mother lingered in the air. Every decision shapes the next, and just before they set back to search the house thoroughly, a half-buried object caught his eye behind the desk, a glimmer of something metallic and unusual, waiting to be uncovered. What was it? The spark of curiosity igniting once more in his heart. Daniel leaned closer, now unwilling to turn back. The journey was just beginning, and the unexpected revelations beckoned like shadows dancing in the dim light. What had he truly stumbled upon? The metallic glint drew Daniel in, compelling him to reach behind the desk where discarded papers lay like forgotten relics of the past. As his fingers brushed the surface of the object, he unearthed a tarnished locket, its clasp slightly rusted but still holding on to memories, both sweet and bitter. The locket was heavier than he anticipated, its weight signaling that it might contain something significant. Clarissa watched intently, her curiosity mirroring his own. "What is it?" she asked, the air thick with anticipation as Daniel pried it open. Inside, a faded photograph of a young boy grinned back at him, a smile full of innocence. Next to it was a lock of hair, intricately wrapped in a cloth, its color unmistakably similar to his own. His heart raced as fragments of recognition fused within him. Could this be a piece of his family's history, unnoticed amid the chaos that had unfolded in those early years? The sight of it jolted him, like an electric trigger igniting unprocessed memories. "Daniel, are you okay?" Clarissa's voice broke through the fog of his shock, and he blinked, trying to articulate what he felt without speech. This locket was not just a stranger's artifact. It was a connection to his past, a familiar pulse that resonated deep within. As he held it tightly, a new wave of determination washed over him. What if this small object contained not just memories, but also the answers he sought? Perhaps this locket could lead him deeper into the narrative that crafted his identity, a missing piece in the puzzle he had been assembling through the letters. "We need to find out more about this," Daniel finally stated, urgency threading his voice. He could feel an almost magnetic pull, compelling him to explore the origins of the locket and what it could reveal about his family's dynamics. Clarissa nodded, a silent agreement sparking between them, igniting their shared commitment to face the past head-on. They ventured out of the study, the rest of the house stretching before them like a vast and uncharted landscape. Each room held potential revelations, remnants of forgotten lives begging to be discovered. With each open door, Daniel felt his heart beat faster, anticipation mixing with trepidation as he wondered what truths lurked behind the neatly closed facades. The dust kicked up beneath their feet was a testament to years of solitude. "Where do we start?" he asked as they stood in the corridor, a sense of purpose flooding him. "The family photo album," Clarissa suggested. "It's likely in the living room, right?" Daniel nodded, the memory of its spines lined on a shelf surfacing. In those pages, lives intertwined in bizarre ways. He recalled desperate holidays filled with forced smiles, where familial ties felt like strands holding chaos at bay. As they flipped through the album that held such poignant significance, exhilaration coursed through him. With every photograph, he felt not just an engagement with the past, but an unraveling of layers that had kept him emotionally tethered. The faces that looked back at him were familiar strangers. He could see reflections of himself in their eyes, understanding their faults and triumphs. Daniel paused on one photo, his mother, radiant and bursting with life, her laughter palpable even through the glossy print. His heart ached. "She seems so happy here," he murmured. Clarissa leaned closer, reading his expression and offering a soft smile. "Yes, she does. Maybe this could help you understand her struggles." It was true. It was time to confront the complexities, to understand the full extent of a life woven in joy, masked by anguish. How much would uncovering these parts of his life facilitate his path forward? Anxiety gnawed at him, but a newfound bravery pulsated under his skin, a call to arms to rewrite his narrative. Additionally, as pictures unfolded tales of moments that shaped him, another question crept in. What other artifacts of love and pain, discovery and despair, might he be able to locate? An entire life lay ahead, ripe for exploration and understanding. Progressing through the album, he spotted another picture, an unfamiliar face, belonging to a man in a sharp suit with an enigmatic smile. Was this a distant relative he hadn't known? "Who is this guy?" Daniel asked, brows furrowed in concentration as he pointed it out to Clarissa. The mystery beckoned, spinning webs of connection between past and present, leading him toward pathways he hadn't yet considered. As they consider how to explore this newfound lead, Daniel felt the daunting weight of decisions before him looming ever larger. This journey was transforming, no longer just a look into his past, but a critical leap towards understanding his future. What other unforeseen truths would emerge from the shadows? Every unanswered question felt like a thread waiting to be tugged, unraveling the intricate tapestry of his family's story. Motivated by a mix of determination and fear, he was driven to discover what lay at the end of this profound journey. As they continued to sift through remnants of his family's life, the air thickened with anticipation. Would he find a key to unlocking not just who he was, but also the hidden connections that might change everything? With every uncovered item, the ghosts of the past danced closer, whispering promises of revelation. The urgent question remained lingering in the corners of his mind: what untold legacies awaited him, hidden deep within this house? Daniel's fingers lingered over the photograph, tracing the sharp lines of the man's suit with a newfound curiosity that buzzed like static in his veins. He leaned closer to the album, scarcely aware that Clarissa had stepped back, giving him space to absorb the unfolding mystery. Her footsteps faded into the distance, leaving him in a bubble of contemplation, isolated with the fragmented pieces of his lineage. "What do you want from me?" he murmured softly, directing the question inward, though the answer eluded him. Who was this man? A forgotten uncle? A ghost from a family saga he barely understood? The echoes of laughter and whispered secrets entwined in the air as he placed the album down, redirecting his focus to the larger task at hand, unearthing the truth behind his origins. With renewed resolve, he stood up straight, the locket feeling even heavier in his pocket, as if it had absorbed his growing anxiety and determination. He needed a plan, a structured approach to navigate through the labyrinth of his family history. No longer could he hit walls riddled with memories and questions. He would carve a way forward. His first step compelled him to seek the old records stored in the attic, which he remembered another relative mentioning in passing. "You could start there," he had said, "if you're looking for answers." The thoughts of dusty boxes filled with paperwork might yield something substantial, perhaps letters or diaries that could provide context to the faces depicted in the photographs. "Clarissa," he called out, his voice echoing through the house. She returned quickly, her expression one of focus and curiosity. "We should check the attic next. Old records could provide context for these photographs." Good idea, she replied. Let us go see what treasure we can uncover. They moved through the narrow staircase that creaked beneath their weight, leading into the subdued light of the attic. The air was musty, an amalgam of neglected memories that settled around them like a cloak. As they delved into the mess of cardboard boxes, Daniel felt a rush of eagerness, countered by a flicker of doubt. What if the treasure was too fragmented to stitch together? What if he was wrong to seek answers when they only lead to more questions? Clarissa's voice chimed in, snapping him from his spiral. Look at this, she said, holding up a box that had once been bright, now faded from age. They pried it open, and inside lay stacks of letters bundled with ribbons, pieces of correspondence that could potentially bridge the gaps in his understanding. He grabbed the first bundle, carefully loosening it. The handwriting was elegant yet unfamiliar. Each stroke of ink seemed to hum with emotion, the words gliding over time as if reaching out for him. Curiosity battled impatience as he skimmed through the letters, piecing together glimpses of lives intertwined. Love affairs, conflicts, theories that seemed to give life to the images in the album. Daniel, look at this one, Clarissa urged, holding a faded letter that seemed to radiate importance. His breath caught when he read her aloud, spoken words of longing from a woman who desperately sought to reconnect with someone long lost. Emotions came crashing into him, enveloping his heart like thick fog. Was this merely a story of love, or an insight into the family's complexities? Each line revealed joy tinged with sorrow, revelations unfurled before him like petals in bloom. What if the mysteries he unraveled weren't just about peers and predecessors, but sidelights to illuminate his own path? Every letter, photograph, and keepsake might give rise to memories previously buried. With each new discovery, pieces of himself were expected to emerge, awakening dormant strengths and insights into the core of who he was. Enhanced clarity. He furiously scribbled notes, cataloging connections and questions. He felt urgency brewing within him. Truths long since hidden could alter the direction of his life. Clarissa looked at him, her brows furrowed with concern and empathy. Are you prepared for whatever you might find? Daniel hesitated, but quickly countered with unwavering intention. It's time. I need to confront my past. The searching has to stop, and the understanding needs to begin. As he pushed deeper, an unsettling calm washed over him. Each layer peeled back promised revelations that could radically reshape how he perceived himself and his place within the legacy of his family. With every letter read, he dared to confront what had been avoided for too long. Suddenly, one name caught his eye, a name he never expected to see. A family member with shadowy, yet visible, ties that echoed through time, brightening the outline of his identity and igniting new questions. What did I just uncover? He murmured, a mix of excitement and dread pooling inside him. With the attic filled with the soft sound of rustling paper, Daniel felt the weight of anticipation settle heavily on his shoulders. This was no mere house of memories. It was a wellspring of truths waiting to be unearthed. Did clarity of his family history imply chaotic revelations about himself? And as the layers of obscured identity began to peel away, Daniel couldn't help but fear what hidden traumas might lie in wait. Steeling himself, he knew one thing for certain. There would be no turning back from this pivotal moment of discovery. In this journey of unveiling identity, every revelation would test the essence of who he thought he was. What lay ahead was an expedition through family dynamics twisted and tangled. Would the pain uncover strength or lead to more haunting shadows? With a deep breath, Daniel pictured the photograph he'd seen moments before, the man with the tailored suit, seemingly composed yet distant. The name that had jumped out at him from the letter echoed through his mind, weaving itself into every corner of his consciousness. The anticipation was palpable. A cold knot of trepidation formed in his belly, countered by an insatiable curiosity. Clarissa, do you think family secrets are always dark? He questioned, more to himself than to her, his voice shaky with the weight of his thoughts. I think every family has layers, she replied cautiously, her eyes searching his face for the depth of his uncertainty. It's not always about the darkness, but maybe about the truths we choose to ignore. Are you ready to dig deeper? Her words wrapped around him like a lifeline, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his exploration might unravel everything he believed to be true about himself. Yet, into that uncertainty flickered a faint ember of courage, the unwavering need to find clarity, to piece together his identity. Without further hesitation, he set his focus back on the letters, carefully sifting through each one, untying the delicate ribbons, and flattening the pages against the dusty attic floor illuminated by a lone beam of light. Years of silence and buried memories lay within these words, and he yearned to decipher the narratives that could redefine his place in the world. As he scanned through, the name he had located earlier began to crystallize into reality, a relative connected not just through the lineage, but through the experiences that echoed in the lives of those before him. That name would surely lead him further down the path of discovery. Daniel. Clarissa nodded toward one of the piles he hadn't fully examined yet. What about these journals? They look much older. Daniel's heart raced as he strode over to the stack, filled with a fierce determination. He felt a sense of purpose swell within him, driving him to confront whatever emotions lay dormant in those pages. What if they contained thoughts, dreams, or even confessions that would provide context to the family's journey? Would they give shape to the struggles endured and the legacies addressed in cryptic whispers? Lifting the first journal, he exhaled, aware that he was crossing a threshold. The cover seemed worn but resilient, inviting him into its depths. As he flipped to the first entry, scrawled in intimate cursive near the start of the 20th century, he could almost hear their voice, echoing through time. The entries reflected love and loss, tales of heartache imbued with resilience. His own emotions surged as he began to understand their struggles, a rich tapestry interwoven with his own silent battles. Clarity began threading through his consciousness, formulating connections that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Each word distilled the nebulous shadows looming around his identity into something he could confront. It wasn't merely about finding answers. It was about grappling with the complexities of his history that had shaped him, whether he acknowledged them or not. Hours slipped by unnoticed as he immersed himself in the narratives, each journal passage revealing startling revelations, unrequited love, enduring friendships, regret, and pride. The family he thought he knew emerged as multifaceted figures that grappled with life's messiness, just as he did. Daniel was learning that these threads of human experience weren't confined to the past, but resonated deeply within his own life. "What is this?" he suddenly exclaimed, his heart racing. Clarissa peered over his shoulder as he pointed to a particular name pinned across multiple entries. This name tied back to the individual in the photograph, a thread he hadn't fully grasped until now. This could be the link I need, he realized, urgency coursing through him. Was that individual the harbinger of the family curses or the key to unearthing buried resilience? He had to uncover whether that connection held joy, betrayal, or something altogether unexpected. Daniel felt emboldened. Perhaps he wasn't just a passive observer in this quest. He was a participant, capable of shaping his narrative through the echoes of those who came before him. But before he could ponder further, a sharp sound intruded, Clarissa gasping as a flimsy sheet fell from the journal he gripped tightly. Their eyes locked, both the discovery and the abrupt interruption heightening the tension. What unforeseen detail had just escaped into the air? "Daniel, we have to know what's in that," she urged, her voice a mix of exhilaration and dread echoing his own. He swallowed hard, the weight of what lay ahead heavy in the air, laden with tensions of revelation. Would this slip surface secrets that would fracture his understanding or pave the way for acceptance? As he stretched to retrieve the errant page, everything felt poised at the edge of a precipice, spinning with promise and peril. The undeniable truth lingered before them, tantalizing and terrifying. What would he find scrawled across that paper? And more importantly, How would it transform everything he thought he knew about himself? With bated breath and pounding heart, Daniel steeled himself for yet another plunge into an abyss of discovery. As Daniel unfolded the slip of paper, the rippling tension in the attic thickened. The air was electric with a mix of anticipation and fear, the wind howling softly outside, as if the world itself braced for revelation. He held his breath, the weight of his ancestry pressing against his chest like a heavy hand. The note was a brief correspondence dated long before he was born, penned by a name he recognized from the letters. It detailed a desperate plea for understanding, a heartfelt confession from his mother about the underlying struggles that had ultimately spiraled out of control. Her handwriting was familiar, yet this version reflected a vulnerability he had never known in her before, a plea for forgiveness interlaced with an acknowledgement of her failings. I regret the choices that pulled us apart. This wasn't just about you. It was about my battles, too. I was too lost to see you needed me. Tears pricked Daniel's eyes, the realization washing over him like a cleansing wave. His mother had fought her own demons, intricately woven into the fabric of their lives. This wasn't merely a story of negligence. This was a narrative about imperfection, resilience, and the human condition. The burdens she carried echoed in his own struggles, illuminating paths of understanding that had long been shrouded in ambiguity. Clarissa, standing beside him, drew in a sharp breath, her eyes wide in recognition. This is monumental, Daniel. Understanding her pain allows us to understand everything else: your pain, your journey, your healing. You have to embrace this. Daniel felt a formidable shift within him, a door firmly opening to truths he had shied away from confronting. I've clung to anger, unable to see their struggles through any lens but my own pain, he admitted, his voice trembling with that momentous realization. I always thought being hardened meant maintaining my identity when it was actually keeping me from healing. With Clarissa's unwavering support, he focused on the letters, each one unraveling layers of family history, pain, and love interlaced with deep sorrow. You're shedding those layers, Daniel. Your path lies not in absolving their mistakes, but in recognizing the strength gained from acknowledging them. She encouraged, her voice steady. Time slipped unnoticed, their connection deepening as fresh discoveries fell like leaves around them. The attic, once a dusty vault of abandonment, pulsed with the energy of reclamation. With each detail unearthed, the heavy chains of expectation and blame began to dissolve, replaced with an understanding that invigorated his resolve. Days turned to nights, but in that attic, they delved deeper into the emotional history tied to each heirloom, each letter revealing links not only between the past and present, but igniting the promise of a future that could coexist with the shadows of their lineage. With every entry, Daniel found pieces of himself. He was no longer just a product of chaos. He was a survivor, capable of creating a new narrative. By the time they stumbled upon the last journal, the weight in Daniel's chest had transformed into a buoyant optimism. The pages revealed a cascade of dreams unfulfilled and aspirations chased under the disguise of family legacy. Yet alongside these were glimmers of hope. His lineage was not merely defined by fleeting shadows of desperation. This new understanding empowered him, allowing Daniel to finally embrace his own purpose. I want to honor their struggles and put that energy into something good, he said resolutely. My story began in this chaos, but it doesn't have to end there. I can be both a product of my history and a shaper of my future. With a determined smile, he turned to Clarissa, who mirrored his resolve. It's time to forge a path forward that honors where we've come from while embracing who we've yet to become. Recognizing his narrative as part of a larger family legacy, Daniel could step into the identity he had long sought, a man rooted in resilience and hope, prepared to share his story without shame. In the days that followed, he sought to rebuild bridges, not just with Clarissa, but also with avenues of community that resonated with his experience. Eager to inspire others facing their own disconnections, he began performing again, sharing his journey through song, a soulful blend of vulnerability and strength. Listeners began to respond, motivated by his authenticity. A year later, Daniel found himself on stage, guitar in hand, the weight of shame lifted. Working in a supportive initiative for families struggling with addiction, he embodied the change he wished to see. His mother's story, intertwined with his own, now served as a beacon of hope rather than despair, empowering others to redefine their narratives. The applause resounded like a chorus of acceptance. The applause was not just for the melodies that filled the air. It was a recognition of the transformation, his journey from being a shadow on the streets to a light illuminating paths for others. Daniel stood tall, solid in his achievements, knowing he had not only uncovered a past, but defined himself anew. Now fully aware of his worth, he had forged a meaningful legacy through empathy, compassion, and continued growth, proving that healing doesn't erase history, it redefines it. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show you care. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time we help others uncover their paths of resilience.